Welcome back from the ad break. You are still watching Prime Live. Now, my next guest is Dr. Janet Cotton, who is joining us via Zoom, and we will be speaking about all things innovating materials engineering and also the journey of Dr. Janet Cotton and the impact of 180 engineering solutions. Now, this is going to be a very interesting conversation because Dr. Janet Cotton specifically is someone who is leading or who is a leading metallurgist and materials engineer, and she's also the founder and managing director of 180 Engineering Solutions, which is Africa's top ISO accredited materials testing laboratory. And this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I am looking forward to learning a lot from her. Thank you so much, Dr. Janet, for joining us this evening on Prime Live.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's such a privilege.
Thank you so much. Can you please tell us what inspired you to pursue a career in metallurgy and materials engineering?
I have to say to you that I was always the class geek, eh? And I really, really loved science and maths. And when it came time to choose a career, I considered a career in accounting. Thankfully, I didn't choose that. And I was tempted into engineering, and then the fact of the matter is I had to choose which engineering degree I would choose, and I chose metallurgical engineering when I went to an open day at UCT. And what inspired me was the amazing opportunity to see materials under a microscope and to be able to see under a microscope what the materials could do in real life applications. And that is what absolutely hooked me, and I'm still in love with my career today.
That's amazing. Now, how did your studies at the University of Cape Town shape your career?
Well, I obviously had to do an undergraduate degree, and then after that, I applied for a master's degree program, and then I was invited to upgrade my master's degree program to a PhD, which was a massive privilege. So I was able to get a PhD in 4 years, as opposed to the normal master's program of 2 years plus another 4 years, so 6 years. So I got a PhD in 4 years. I absolutely loved my postgraduate studies. I was developing a new material for Columbus stainless called permanite, and I was extremely excited about that being commercialized. Yeah, that was how I got into postgraduate studies at UCT.
That's amazing. And I want us to talk about your motivation or inspiration behind starting your own materials testing laboratory at just 28 years old. Please tell us about that.
So while I was at UCT, many people from the industry used to come to the university and ask us questions about materials, and especially welding problems or forming and bending, or what was the right material to use for a particular application. And I found these questions so incredibly interesting that sometimes I would just take them on and just do the work, as a sort of side job. And then I started to see that there was actually a business in this, and I wrote a business plan. And during my postdoctoral studies, I visited a lot of companies in my spare time and asked them would they be interested in, buying the services of a materials engineer. And they said absolutely they would. So at the end of my postdoctoral studies, I wrote my business plan and I launched the business, and I went off and started this business. And I think it's testament today, after 23 years, that the industry does have a need for these expertise, because I've been supplying these needs for 23 years in the industry.
That's great. And tell us about how your company 180 has grown into Africa's leading ISO accredited materials testing facility.
So I wanted to expand. At some point when I started by myself. All right, so I started with a little car, a little Toyota Conquest, and my laptop that I bought with an overdraft facility that I could get with the bank. And then after some time, I realized that I needed my own laboratory. So I raised the money for my own laboratory. It took me a long time. It took me about 10 years or so. And eventually somebody listened and gave me, or not gave me, but, entered into a commercial agreement
Mm-hmm.
to set up the laboratory. And once I set up the laboratory, I realized that I needed to make the laboratory its own business entity. It shouldn't only rely on the consulting side of the business. It should
Mm.
also be its own business unit. And to that end, I decided to travel to Angola. And I went to Angola for the first time in 2014, where oil and gas was taking off quite rapidly.
Mm.
And it was an incredible opportunity because the market was so receptive to a laboratory in Africa on continent that could help them with their metallurgical testing needs. And I picked up 3 or 4 clients in my visits to Angola in 2014 and 2015. And those clients have grown my laboratory to what it is today. And we are now offering our services not only to Angola, but to Uganda, to Ghana, and we've opened up offices in Namibia, which we recently launched on LinkedIn this week.
Mm. And what industries and challenges does your company primarily focus on?
So the challenges of our industry, they're quite broad and quite diverse. But if I can talk about my Angolan market,
Mm.
which I'm very grateful for, it's oil and gas. And the work that we do basically is the risk mitigation to prevent oil and gas spills or environmental hazards for subsea structures. So we do all the weld procedure qualification record testing for the fabrication yards in Angola that are making subsea structures to produce oil and gas products in the world. Um, and what I find really satisfying about that is that our work is part of the environmental protection and the environmental risk mitigation.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so that's what we do there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, does that answer your question or?
Yes, yes, you have answered my question. And as someone that has been in the industry for so long, how do you see the field of material engineering evolving in the next decade?
So materials engineering is the final, not the final frontier, because there's never a final frontier, but at the moment, materials engineering is the frontier of engineering.
Mm.
And I always just say to people, just look at Formula One cars, right? If you look at Formula One cars when they first came out, they were made out of metallic materials. But today, if you look at Red Bull or whoever is your favorite team, I maybe just gave away who my favorite team is. Um, the materials are composite materials and really advanced engineering materials, and everything is modular. And that's where we're going with engineering is we know how to make internal combustion engines. We know how to make many things, but in order to optimize, we have to develop new materials to make it more efficient, more environmentally friendly, and to optimize the lifespan, we need to be looking at the engineering materials that we are using for all of these applications.
Mm. And for young individuals or future aspiring engineers that are watching right now, what advice do you have for them in terms of how they can actually make an impact in this engineering field?
So, unfortunately, today in Africa, we don't have many materials engineering schools. There are not many materials engineering schools left
Mm.
in Africa. I was very, very privileged to have studied under Professor Tony Ball's department that he started up, that he brought from Birmingham University from the
Mm.
United Kingdom. And what I'm trying to do is to say we need more engineering schools. that are focused on materials engineering, because materials engineering is such an important part of engineering, the engineering sector and the commercial world. So my advice is, if you're studying mechanical engineering or chemical engineering or any field of engineering, consider the materials, because you can't you can't practice engineering by ignoring engineering materials. Not anymore. There's so many diverse engineering materials out there that you absolutely have to embrace this field of engineering, which is growing and emerging, and the frontier of engineering today.
Mm. Now, before I let you go, Dr. Janet, can you tell us on the legacy that you would wish to leave behind, especially in this engineering sector?
So I have started up an initiative called the Root Cause Failure Analysis Africa Conference. Uh, and we had our inaugural conference about 3 weeks ago at the Vineyard Hotel in Newlands in Cape Town. And it was a fantastic conference because we were able to show how metallurgical and materials engineering fits in banking, underwriting, insurance, loss adjusting, legal, and also in asset care. And my legacy is exactly that. This conference and this meeting, which I would like to grow throughout Africa and have participants and attendees and presenters come from all over Africa for all of the amazing projects that are happening in Africa. Um, you may not know, but there is a pipeline in Uganda called ECOB. There are incredible projects that are happening in Angola, amazing projects that are happening in Ghana. And we have, as South Africans, so much to learn from these amazing projects that are happening all over Africa in our own continent. And my legacy is to bring the key players in these projects, whether they are underwriters, asset care managers, legal experts, insurers, together, because that is the ecosystem that essentially um, connects us all together, because we are all interested in risk mitigation. We are all interested in making the project really successful and having an extended life cycle. Let's just think of a solar plant, for example. The solar plant needs to be able to provide electricity for 20 years. A wind farm, for example, needs to survive 20 to 25 years for the investment to be worthwhile. But what are you investing in actually? You're investing in the wind vanes, which are composite materials. You're investing in the towers, which are steel that is welded together. You're investing in the concrete. You're actually investing in the materials that are going to make the money for you at the end of the day. But nobody's talking about the materials. And so this conference is about talking about the materials where the failure occurs, so that we can make better infrastructure projects and we can make better decisions in Africa, and we can be the most amazing emerging markets in the world.
Mm. Thank you so much, Dr. Janet, for joining us and for giving us information and insight on what you do. We really do appreciate it, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, viewers at home. That was an amazing interview that I just had with Dr. Janet Cotton on innovating materials engineering.